Happy Sunday, everyone, and hope everyone had a fun and safe 4th of July. Today's July 5th, and this is episode 2 of the Exploration Gaming Podcast. I am super excited that I made it to week 2. I appreciate you coming and watching week 2 because it's a learning process for everyone. And this week, it's likely going to be a poop sandwich. I tried to set it up to be a poop sandwich because we're going to start with something I think is really cool, really exciting. We're going to have a not so great middle, the poop, and then arguably end with some quick hits that I find to be very exciting. Some good news for Nintendo fans and anime fans alike. And of course, we'll end with Indie Alcove, where I'm going to touch on 3 indie games that I am pretty excited for. One of which I can't stop telling people about. I probably should have started with this last week, but here we are. I'm going to cover it now. It's in an article I wrote about the Xbox Summer Showcase. So this game that we'll go over that I'm hyping up already is something that probably is getting a lot more attention just because it's part of the Xbox Game Showcase. But I have to talk about it, and we'll get to that in a minute. First and foremost, our top layer of bread in our poop sandwich. The good news is Marathon, and this is old news. It did come out a couple weeks ago. Marathon announced that they're going to have a PvE mode coming July 21st at the mid-season of Season 2. This is from Bungie's website, introducing Vault Breaker. Marathon's experimental PvE mode, Vault Breaker. Explore Cryo Archive as a crew, duo, or a solo player, taking on progressively challenging series of vaults. Grow stronger across multiple matches with progression that's unique to Vault Breaker, and push towards the final vault and the mysterious entity within. Vault Breaker requires a special sponsored kit to queue up, and any gear or items you find stay behind when you exfil. The exception to this is the vault data. This new currency is found within vaults, and when extracted can be exchanged for upgrades to your Vault Breaker sponsored kits, as well as gear that can be used in other modes. This lets you experience Cryo Archive without flooding the economy with low risk, high power cryo loot. This is great news because I've seen some gameplay of Marathon, and it just doesn't. It looks amazing. Sorry, I've seen gameplay. Gameplay looks amazing. However, I'm not an extraction shooter person. I tried to get into Tarkov with one of my college buddies, and it's just not a game for me. The whole go in, try to get some stuff, extract with it, or if you die, you lose everything. It's just not for me because I don't want to lose everything and feel like I just wasted a bunch of time. Bungie introducing a PvE mode could. Oh, sorry, my cat is trying to eat some food. That is not hers. But Bungie introducing a PvE mode that could build upon Marathon and get new individuals like me invested in the game is what they need to do. Because unfortunately, extraction shooters are basically going to become the new, what are they called? Battle Royales, because we saw Tarkov explode in popularity and become a huge success, and all these publishers and developers like, we need our own extraction shooter, and they've kind of failed unless you are Arc Raiders. They kind of haven't gone over well. If I'm correct, Call of Duty released WMD earlier, and which was their attempt at an extraction shooter, and it just didn't pan out. They're going back and trying it again. Maybe it'll work this time. But the unfortunate truth is, when you're producing a live service game like Marathon or a Battle Royale, they're just a dime a dozen. Or I shouldn't say they're a dime a dozen. Our time is valuable, and you have to try to pull people away from a ecosystem they're already invested in, which means you have to pull, for Marathon, you have to pull people away from Arc Raiders, and you have to pull people away from Tarkov. You have to pull people away from these and get them to play your game, get them invested in your story. And on top of that, you have to compete against all the other kinds of games out there. There are so many games coming out right now. So you have to compete against other shooters, extraction shooters, battle royales, single player games. Now, granted, people playing extraction shooters probably aren't going to be super invested in single player games per se, or not as many of them. But I think that this is a good way of getting people into Marathon, and hopefully it will help Bungie, because as I guess this is tarnishing our sandwich a little bit, Bungie had a ton of layoffs where essentially the entire Destiny team was laid off this week, which is really sad for the industry. But Marathon has to be successful, otherwise Bungie might fall apart. Now, going back to the news of Vault Breaker, if you're not into Marathon like I am, you might be asking yourself, I don't know what a sponsored kit is. I sure as heck did not. And so after a quick Google, sponsor kits are one of Marathon's free loadout systems, giving you the ability to gear up and get back into the fight without needing to spend any money on gear or consumables. This is from Shack News. That gave a good explanation, and it also makes sense on why vault data that you get from vault breakers will improve your sponsored kit. I'm hoping that the sponsored kit they use for vault breakers is free, minus the cost of the game. Hopefully that kit is free. You load up, use that, and you can again progressively go through it. It seems like that means it's going to be a roguelite, which is, again, is fine. If the gunplay is as good as it feels, as good as it looks, this will be worth it. Catch me on July 21st, probably buying Marathon to give it a try, purely because of Vault Breakers. Or I should put a caveat there, I will wait until reviews come out for Vault Breakers. Hopefully places like IGN, GameSpot, Polygon. Kind of funny. Hopefully they release some kind of review for Vault Breakers, because I'm super interested in this. And it might actually get me to purchase Marathon and dive in and play a little bit of Marathon. We'll see. There's a lot of games coming out this year. I'm still working through Mina the Hollower, and I have a backlog that's endlessly long, as I'm sure everyone else does. We'll see. I'm hoping that it's worth my time. Now, for the poop, which is the death of physical media and some of its implications. As many of you may have heard, PlayStation is moving away from physical disc production in January 2028 for all games releasing on PlayStation consoles, meaning they're only going to be available on the PlayStation Store, or you can go to a retailer and purchase a box with a digital code in it like GTA 6 is. Really big bummer. So, real quick, I'm going to read you the PlayStation blog article. In response to shifting trends in consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. Caveat from what I said earlier, digital formats, I bet they don't release a box. It's just going to be that plastic card with a code on the back. It's not, because they're trying to save money. That's a big piece. From Sid Schumann, Senior Director, Sony Interactive Entertainment Content Communications. As consumer preferences in the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028 in disc format. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. We'll continue to provide our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering a world class gaming experience to our fans, and we thank you for your continued support. This is huge. One, this likely means we're moving towards an all digital future, which I don't think is too shocking for some. I it's not shocking for me because I don't know the last time I purchased a new physical game. I've obviously purchased Pokemon Emerald, which I purchased 4 years ago. And the big bummer here, beyond the death of physical media, is that we're moving towards an era where we're not going to own our games. When you purchase a game digitally, even on Steam, which I had to double check, you are purchasing a license to play the game. You're not purchasing the game like you would when you purchase a physical disc. This is bad because Sony has proven that they can take away digital assets. They did it with 550 movies. I don't know if it was this. It was in the last week or two. Their media rights with a distribution for movies elapsed, and people who purchased these license for movies on PlayStation just lost their games. No compensation, no nothing. People are losing these movies, and that's a serious risk that comes with buying digital media. So we have to make in the future, things have to change. Physical or digital purchasing has to be actual digital purchasing, not, hey, here's a license, you can play the game as long as we have the rights to give you the game. As soon as that's up, we'll probably have to remove it from your account, which means you could spend $60 on a game and just lose it. That, to me, was the biggest implications as I've been reading and listening about this change. But I think there are other things to note, such as video game preservation. This does become significantly harder when the physical game goes away. If you can't take the game and stick it into a PlayStation or an Xbox or any console or a cartridge, it means that it's just gone. And when the PlayStation Store eventually shuts down for the PlayStation 6, way down the line, and they're like, hey, just like they're doing right now, how the PS3 and PS Vita stores are closing, when they say, hey, we're not supporting this anymore, you can't download games on your PlayStation 6, it means that any game that was locked to that system is just going to be gone. This is also assuming PlayStation 6 is all digital. I suspect it's going to be all digital. A lot of analysts in the industry are saying, hey, it's probably going to be all digital. I think that's really sad because it's so cool right now to be able to go and purchase old physical games that you might want to revisit. Now, this purchasing old physical games right now is rather expensive because the hobby of collecting video games is pricey, because individuals like myself who have some expendable income, a little less now than previously because of economic situations and inflation. But in 2020, when we were at home all the time and you had more expendable income, video game collection became a big deal. And that essentially is going to go away. Having physical collections is just going away. Now, again, to Sony's point, purchasing physical discs has gone down. I've been looking online, and it's basically 80% of individuals are purchasing games digitally, 20% physically. That's a pretty significant number of digital, at least for PlayStation. I heard that Sony or Nintendo is 50-50 on digital to physical. I think that video game preservation is going to be a problem in the future because we're going to lose these ways of playing games. And again, it comes back to you could lose these games. If you have a PS6 and you buy games on a PS6 and you're a generation later and they're like, man, we can't support the PlayStation Store on the PlayStation 6 anymore. So you're kind of out of luck. Those games are gone. You spent all that money, but don't get it anymore. And another point to this is the cost for consumers, which is really interesting to consider because the cost of games isn't going to go down when this happens. If right now, average AAA game cost is around $70. The price had gone up in the past, I don't know how many years. It went up to $70. And GTA 6 ushered in this notion that, hey, these marquee titles that you know and love, they're going to be $80. People are going to be charging $80 for certain titles that are at a certain threshold. I wouldn't be shocked if the third entry in the Final Fantasy VII trilogy is $80. I would expect it to be 80 if GTA 6 said, hey, we're going to do 80. Final Fantasy 7, big name, probably one of the most well-known Final Fantasy games in the Final Fantasy series. I would expect it to be $80. Therefore, we are going to see $80 become more of a norm for these marquee titles. The next mainline Zelda game, $80. Nintendo's already shown that they are going to charge $80 for games. Again, with PlayStation moving away from physical media, they're going to say $70, $80, even though part of that $70, $80 cost is producing and distributing the physical box and disc for the game. We are going to be paying $70, $80 for a digital license. You don't own it. And you're not getting a physical item that you can keep, resell. As we can see, again, this game right here is a great example. That game is, I think, $500. It is an expensive game to purchase. As you can tell, as long as video game collection is popular, physical games are an asset. They might decrease in value in the short term, which again, during the console life cycle, as you go. So if you bought God of War Ragnarok when it came out for PlayStation 5, the cost of it probably went down. But in the long term, it's likely going to be an asset and start to appreciate. So it depreciates during the life cycle because people already played it, no one's interested in it. And then as people get further away, it starts to appreciate, increase in value because people want to collect that item. But that's going away. You don't own the game. The cost is going to be the same. You can't sell the game back. You could lose the game. There's so many issues with this. And it's unbelievably frustrating from a consumer perspective that we're not going to own games anymore. We're not going to have the ability to sell games back to GameStop or to a friend or online or your local game store. That's just going away. But again, like I said last week with Rockstar, PlayStation wants to control this stuff. They want you to be buying their games from them from the PlayStation Store, so they're not sharing the profits with Best Buy, with Target, with Walmart, these stores that you can go and buy games from. They're not sharing with them. And they're not losing out on profits when you decide to go buy a used game from GameStop. Which again brings me to another point. GameStop is going to die. It is awful to say. Now, a lot of people don't like GameStop. Some GameStops are very shady. I recognize this. However, I have a fondness for GameStop. Growing up, going to GameStop, buying games at GameStop, going into my local GameStop in Lancaster, Ohio, in the River Valley Mall, and I walk in, which is no longer, this GameStop's no longer there, and you walk in and the walls are filled with games. And as a child, it is one of the most surreal things. You're like, oh my gosh, look at all these games. Now, as an adult, I realize a lot of them were shovelware, where it was a bunch of junk games, which is fine. Because as a kid, you're like, oh, this is such a cool experience. And I miss that. I went into a GameStop today, and it's just sad because it's not as much games anymore. But again, it's because people don't buy physical games. I am part of the problem. We are part of the problem. I won't come back and I said it last week. I'll say it this week. We are part of the problem. We do not buy physical games. So therefore, how do we get mad about it? Like, I am disappointed that we won't have physical games anymore. It hurts. I also didn't realize that you're just paying for a license when you bought a digital game, and that means it can be taken away from you basically at any time. And that alone is kind of pushing me back to oh, I might have to start buying physical games again, because I do not like that. I do not like that you're just paying for a license. So, in short, physical games are likely going to die, and the next console generation is not going to have disk drives. PlayStation's move to remove physical games or physical discs, a very big indicator. Xbox also had an indicator in the past week because The Verge reports that Xbox has been testing out a disc to digital feature since May. This is at least good news, because it means that if you bought a game physically, if you bought a disc, you'll be able to put it into your Xbox Series X, and you will get a digital copy of the game that is associated with your account. It is also associated with that disc. So if you go and sell that disc to GameStop, and as soon as someone else inserts that game into their console, the digital copy goes to that console. If you give the disc to your friend, same situation. But it means that you still have ownership of the game. And it means that when the next console generation, when Project Helix comes out, you will still be able to play your Xbox Series games and Xbox One games. It doesn't extend to 360 or original Xbox right now. Not too surprising there, because those are not Blu-ray. I think it's going to basically extend to Blu-ray discs. If there's some difference, I don't know, between a regular DVD and a Blu-ray or an HD disc, which is what the 360 had. The technology is probably different. How those are read is probably different. But again, silver linings. It means that you will have a digital entitlement for a physical game that you purchased, and you will be able to continue to use it on the next console generation. You also, if I'm correct, I'd have to go back and double check this. It's attached to your Microsoft account, which means you can play it anywhere that it's available. If it's available on PC, you can play it on PC. I would assume an example of this would be Gears of War. If you bought the Gears of War remastered edition and for Xbox physically, and this comes out, you'll be able to stick the disc in, you'll get that digital edition, and say you're wanting to play with friends, play the campaign with a friend on PC. You just hop on, boot up the Microsoft app, and bam, you can play it digitally there. That is huge. That is actually fantastic on Microsoft's account, since they have been struggling the past few weeks with not so great news of layoffs, closures, which tomorrow could be a very sad eventful day for Microsoft and Xbox. We'll see. I think that physical games is sadly just going to go away. I don't think we should be too surprised. The convenience of just buying digitally is fantastic. It really is. I don't know the last time I bought a physical game. I go in and I'm like, ooh, I want to buy a physical game, but I don't. I just don't. Especially given you can usually. I typically am waiting for games to go on sale before I purchase them. And by the time they go on sale, it usually means the physical version is not in stores anymore. But that also leads into this preservation and ownership of games leads us into this last piece of what I would say is bad news, which is U.S. bill requiring paid games to be playable after they shut down has failed to pass a Senate vote in California. This is from Video Games Chronicles. Essentially, in California, they were trying to pass a bill that would require game developers and publishers to do the following. This is, again, from VGC. Had the bill been passed without any modification, publishers would have been legally required to give the public at least 60 days notice if it planned to shut down a game's servers and prevent its ordinary use to ensure players don't buy it right before it shuts down. Totally reasonable, because if they just say, hey, it's going away tomorrow, that would really suck if I went out and bought a $60 game and they said, hey, this game's not going to be playable tomorrow. I opened it, so you can't return it. Continuing, the publisher would then have to tell players the exact date the shutdown will occur, which services will no longer be provided, which game features will stop working as a result, any known security risks that might come as a result of the shutdown, and how the player can continue to either use the game or get a refund. Publishers would then be legally required to either provide an alternate version of the game that no longer needs to connect to a server, patch, or update the existing game so it can be played offline, or refund the player full costs they originally paid for the game. An example of how the process should work in the future is Multiverse, Warner Brothers' Smash Bros. Competitor, which was shut down in May 2025. Although the game is no longer available, players who logged in between February 4 and its shutdown on May 30 saw their save files updated to allow an offline version of the game to continue to be playable with all earned and purchased content available moving forward. Multiverses did a fantastic job with that, obviously, but most don't. I believe Concord, which is a PlayStation hero shooter, didn't do that. It was out for a couple months and then it shut down. So if you bought that game, you're just SOL. You're out of luck. Sorry, spent that money. Game's gone. Can't play it anymore. I actually think this is a really good thing, especially it's a consumer forward. Hey, it's a consumer forward movement that basically means it protects your $60 or protects the money you spend on the game to purchase the game, or helps protect the money you may spend in the game. A lot of these games provide the ability to purchase in-game content, meaning you may pay $20 for the game, but they get you because it's, hey, here's a skin for your character, or here is an accessory or a skin for a gun. I think that's it's sad that this didn't pass. And I hope that this becomes a bigger movement within the games industry, because I think it needs to happen. It ties in so beautifully. This information came out the same day as PlayStation going no physical disc anymore, which was July 1st. I read this first. I thought, oh man, this is really cool. This is like really good news. And then later on in the day, I was listening to Kind of Funny Games Daily, and they said, hey, PlayStation's getting rid of game discs, no physical games anymore. And it mars so well together. We're seeing this movement for games, or for protection of consumers when they purchase games. And we're going to need more of this moving forward, because if we don't own, if you are, if you're spending $80, $70, $80 on something and you don't actually own it, that really sucks. Either moving forward, I think that the games have to change how they are provided to us, and you may need to go to a subscription model, such as Xbox Game Pass, where you can go and play whatever game is on that part of that subscription. Or games need to become less expensive because we're not owning them. So just the justification of saying, hey, this game costs $60 to $70, it becomes less realistic, because I don't own that at that point. I don't own any of the digital games, which really sucks, because I have a pretty decent Steam library and a pretty decent library on PlayStation. I'm hoping that this gains traction, and you should share this with other people as well. Share that we do need some kind of consumer protection, so we don't get more situations where you play a game and it's either taken away from you because Sony loses the license to the game, or a game gets shut down and you're no longer able to play it. That is the end of what I would say is the poopy news for this. And I want to dive in to a couple of my last more exciting news. If you are not a fan of rumors, which I shouldn't say rumors, leaks. I am an individual who thinks leaks are very bad for the games industry. Ocarina of Time was leaked. And I believe after this week, I realized there are varying levels of leaks. There are leaks like Ocarina of Time, where we saw the trailer date released, that is going to be shown. I think that's bad, because that takes away the steam and it changes people's expectations. This first one is a rumor that the next Metroid game for Switch 2 reportedly leaked an age rating from Brazilian government. This is from IGN. The next Metroid, and it's assumed to be a 2D Metroid game, Ravenous, is expected to be released, or it has a production year listed of 2026. So potentially we could be getting a 2D Metroid game this year, which would be awesome. Hopefully it is a sequel to Metroid Dread. If you have not played Metroid Dread, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Metroidvania fan. Very fun, very exciting game. It took me a little bit to get into, but once I started playing it, it's a very fluid game, a very action game. The boss battles are very exciting. The traversal is very exciting. If you're a Metroidvania fan, you have to play Metroid Dread. Highly recommend. But exciting news that we're getting another 2D Metroid game. In that vein of Nintendo leaks, this is from Game Rant. that the retailer PlayAsia has listed the Ocarina of Time remake for $59.99. Now, this could be the placeholder, or it could be the real cost. That means that Ocarina of Time will be it could be $60, and I'll take that as a win. Obviously, this means that it may be a 1-for-1 remake of the original, which is fine. I would like that because I have not played Ocarina of Time. I attempted to play it on my friend's 3DS when it was ported to the 3DS, which apparently is a fun way to play it because it does fix some of the more difficult temples, such as the water temple. Again, haven't played it, so I wouldn't know. I'm excited for this. I want to see them remake Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, one of the best, the highest rated game ever made. I want to see it. I want to play it. I'm so excited for this. If it drops next to GTA 6, I'm probably going to play this over GTA 6. Just because this is much more up my alley of a game than GTA 6 is, even though GTA 6 is probably going to be the game of the century. We'll see. We'll see. It also depends if I'm willing to spend the money on it. And that wraps up my favorite news articles of the week. Or I shouldn't say favorite, because some of it was bad news. That wraps up my highlights of the week, or unhighlights of the week. On to what I think is my favorite part of the segment, which is the Indie Alcove. This is where I cover or present 3 indie games for you guys to go check out. Hopefully I picked the correct one here. My first one, and the one that I was hyping up at the beginning, is Bad Magpie. I am so excited for this game. It is unbelievably cute. It is about this little birdie. I mean, look at this. It's fantastic. You play as the Steam page says, you are a magpie with one wing, a missing flock, and an unhealthy obsession with a fallen star. Steal shiny trinkets, cause chaos, and stick your beak where it doesn't belong. Okay, ready? This is in the same vein, again, as Untitled Goose Game, where you're going around causing chaos. I am so excited for this game. One, I love the art style. It is a gorgeous game. But I am so interested to see how they tell a story with this, because the moment this trailer, when I first watched it, caused so much emotion. I was laughing at the beginning where the Bad Magpie is just running around with a flaming stick, burning down, setting the world on fire. And I was like, okay, this is funny. This is good. And see him running around, like, oh, I get the exploration. You get to do a little bit of this and that. And then you see the cry. And it got me. And I said, I'll be buying this day one. Again, this is a game that's probably getting a little bit more attention because it was part of the Xbox Summer Game Showcase. But I have to talk about it. I have to tell people about it. If you haven't seen this yet, you should see it. You should go wishlist it. If you have Xbox Game Pass, you can play it on Game Pass. I think that you should pay for it, in my opinion, because I think that this is going to be a very fun, a very cute game. And I would love to support Milktooth, the developers and publishers of this game. This is, if I'm correct, based upon my review of their Instagram page. This is going to be their first release. Like, this was a project a few friends was like, man, like, we want to make a game, and this is the game they're going to make. I am so very excited for this. Our next indie game is Necrowave. This is going to be an interesting one because it looks so weird. It's kind of obviously, this is a Metroidvania game, as the Steam page says. And Metroidvanias and roguelites are basically the in thing right now. A lot of people make them largely because I suspect, I don't want to say they're easy to make, but the concept is easy to make. But what really drew me to this was the art style and the art direction. I found this one on Instagram, and the individual who is making this is colorblind. So, from again, take this with a grain of salt, is on Instagram, might not be true, but he was like, I'm colorblind, so I picked the colors that I thought looked really cool. So to me, this game looks really cool. And I think it works out really well. I'm sure he got feedback about, hey, you should probably use red for blood. Again, red for blood. But all the other colors, I love this color palette that he uses. And obviously, as the Steam page says, experience the emotional life of a zombie with his butt stuck in a microwave. It's a 2D platform with critical thinking based combat where each different enemy feels like a puzzle to solve instead of relying on brute hack and slash tactics. Again, this hits a spot for me because I love Souls-like. I'm in love with Mina the Hollower, and I would say Mina the Hollower is a Souls-like. There's obviously ways to make Mina the Hollower easier with the not cheat codes in the menu. I haven't dug into them enough. Where you can make the game easier, harder, or goofy. I haven't dug into those at all. I just wanted to play the game, experience the game as the developers made. But I love those games where you learn an attack pattern. You learn, okay, so they do I attack, and I move. Dodge. Those kinds of games I just adore. And I think this is going to be a really fascinating game to come out and play. It'll be, I think that you should go wishlist list. This again is on my wish list of 104 games that I'm interested in. We'll see how it turns out. I doubt it's going to get much attention on the mainstream, again, because it is a Metroidvania. But I am interested to see this game. And our final one, and this one got my attention because of the multiplayer aspect of it. So it's Tears of Metal. As we can see, fight solo or up to 4-player co-op to reclaim your island alongside your Scottish battalion. On each campaign, gain new powerful upgrades, rally your forces, and stop the invaders as they carve into the Mother Stone to harvest its power. Again, roguelikes, very in vogue right now. But if you're looking for a multiplayer game to play with your friends, I find that roguelikes are a fantastic game to play because it allows you to just go jump back in and try it over and over again with your friends. Try new strategies, it keeps replayability there. And when you're playing once a week with friends, I typically don't want to jump between games. Helldivers was that for me for a while. I'd say it's a roguelike. I don't know if people would agree with that, but Helldivers was a lot of fun to play with my friends, and we were jumping in, play once a week for a couple hours, and then it just unfortunately just slowly got old. Tears of Metal is I believe will scratch that itch of a fun jump in play, especially when I myself and my friends, we really love fantasy-esque style games, or this medieval style game. And I think that's going to be a really good option for myself, my friends. And I would recommend, again, other people check it out. I will likely be trying this out when it releases at the end of July, at least by myself. We'll see if my friends join me. So that is the end of this week's episode of Exploration Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for watching, listening. We will be back next week. If you have game recommendations to add to Indie Alcove or games that you think I should check out, please drop them in the comments. If you have an opinion on the future of physical media, if you're bummed about it, if you're excited about it, if you're like me and upset about it, but recognize that you're part of the problem, let me know. Again, thank you. Keep exploring games and let me know what you find. Until next time.